Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Okay. Check. Is my microphone check?
Your microphone's working.
Is it working? What do they say? Okay, so you spent time on aircraft carriers. This is Andy.
Right.
This is Andy Zimmerman. And you spent time on aircraft carriers. What is the radio protocol when you're putting on your headset at the start? What do they call it they call it your watch or a shift or what?
On your watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long would a watch on a standard day, not a critical day, but on a standard day, how long would each watch last?
Each watch is kind of dependent upon what area of cognizance you have. So if you're in the aviation side, it might be 4 hours. If you're down in engineering, it might be 6 hours on, 6 hours off. If you're one of the radio guys, probably 4 hours. IT, probably 4 hours. Watch-wise.
4 hours on, 4 hours off kind of thing? Or 4 hours on, 10 hours off?
There's a difference between standing your watch and working. You stand your watch on the hours you don't work. So like on the aviation side, we work 12 on, 12 off. So it's a 12-hour day, and then you get 12 hours off. And on that 12 hours off, you have to stand a 4-hour watch if you're on duty.
Right. To be ready in case something critical happens.
Right. So that somebody's always watching to make sure everything is going the way it's supposed to.
What about sleeping? That doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of time for sleeping.
Yeah, you get sleep. Sometimes you get more sleep than others, but you get sleep.
Yeah. And do you get days off?
You get Sunday off, basically. You still kind of work Sunday, but you get time off for church and time off for, some other things. But most days it's you just get your church time off, and then it's time to go eat and that sort of thing. But
so when you're on the ship, then it never basically stops.
Nope. 5,000 people working 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Wow. And what was the longest time you were away from a port?
I did 121 days at sea, having seen not even a bird, a butterfly, sign of land. 121 days out at sea. That's 121 straight days away from land, phones, those kind of communication. Back in the day, we didn't have email and all that. So,
yeah, because what years did you serve full time?
From basically 1979 to 2003.
1979 to 24 years.
Yeah, it comes out to like 23 plus a few months. So
and of that 23 plus years, how much was it when you were on active duty that you might be out at sea? Like it wasn't the whole 23 years, was it?
No, I did 7.5 years of sea time. So that could be a week out and a week back in, month out, week back, 2 weeks back in. It could be 9 months out and then back for 18 months.
So when you go out for say 121 days, how much shore time would you get for that?
Actually, so that was in a 9-month cruise. We got extended. Normally there's 6 months, and the Navy tries to stick to that. But yeah, so you're out. So the day you leave port, the day you get back to port is a little over 6 months. But at this particular time, we got extended because of world events, and so we were just out there, cutting donuts out in the middle of the ocean. So so it turned a 6-month cruise into a 9-month cruise, and of that, 121 days we never saw port or land.
Or so of that 9-month cruise, even when you're in port, then you're still on duty, right?
Yep, you still have a duty section that stands duty while everybody else goes out and does their thing. So So Monday I might have duty, and then Tuesday I can go out and go on Liberty, and then Wednesday I can go on Liberty, and then Thursday I might be back on duty again.
But
So
but the biggest thing is because you're in port in some faraway place,
mm,
you really don't need more than a day or two to be on shore because it's like you don't live there anyway. So it's like it's not like
right,
your relatives are there or anything.
no, but you get some sailors they haven't been in port for a while, so they want to go out and have a good time.
So while you were sailing around the world over those 23, 24 years, uh, are you here now, Derek?
I am.
Okay, we already got started. We started literally 5 minutes and 40 seconds ago.
So you really wanted me to be on time this time.
Not,
That's incredible.
See, here's the problem: is when I don't have anybody keeping me under control. I've been spending the last 6 minutes talking to Andy about being in the Navy and being on an aircraft carrier.
Well, that's just interesting.
I know it is very interesting, and right now we're just getting to the part where I'm about to ask him. So, when you were in these faraway ports, and I'm assuming you've been a model railroader since you were 5 or 6.
About 5 or 6.
Yeah. So when you were in these faraway ports, did you go looking for model railroad stuff?
If I could find it, there was some. Like I said, I think I told you before. There sometimes you go overseas. There's a Navy exchange or there's a an Army post or something, and you go in and take a look at their hobby section, and they would have N scale trains. And when you're on the ship, obviously an N scale train is much easier to carry around than a big old 027 gauge. Um, so I would collect them in when I'm overseas and find some really good deals. I mean, I'd find cars like your microtrains cars. They weren't called microtrains then, but you would find cars like that were well designed, well put together, and you'd find them for $6. You know, now you can't touch them for what 21.
Right. Yeah, I don't really know the price of N scale stuff because I don't really see the point of N scale. So.
Hey, we're being friendlier and nicer, Lionel.
Yeah. N scale is the normal scale.
But I am surprised when I see N scale stuff listed. I'm always like, that is cheaper than I pay for the same stuff in HO. So there's a little bit of a price difference, right?
Sometimes. What you got to remember, with miniaturization come higher costs. So the smaller you make it, the more it costs.
Right. And a sound decoder costs the same no matter what.
Right. So sound decoders, they've gotten pretty good at taking a sound decoder, an N scale sound decoder, or a Z scale sound decoder, and putting it out at a reasonable price.
I can't get over how small these decoders have come and how what year, when they started making decoders, Andy, because you've been an N scaler all along, right?
Right.
Do you know why you chose N scale?
Why?
Yeah,
I chose N scale.
Yeah, why you chose N scale? Because I know why I didn't.
Okay, so when I was real young, I had all Lionel stuff. So I had a whole basement full of Lionel stuff. And then when I went into service and I wanted to continue to model trains, moving around as much as I did and looking at the spaces that sometimes you get a smaller house or you had an apartment or you had. So if you wanted to set up your trains, I really couldn't set up HO or anything larger than HO. So I just stuck with N, and I've got 50, 60 years worth of N scale stuff in there.
Did it drive you nuts in the early days when it didn't run that good?
It did. So it's always trying to run a DC and I would find different engines and different companies and trying different products and realize that if I wanted a decent running engine, back in the day, I had to buy a Bachmann Spectrum, or I found some of these Concord Rivarossi engines that were built by Kato. They ran exceptionally well. So
and when would the Bachmann Rivarossi or Concord Rivarossi, when would they have been? What year would that have been?
The ones that I'm referring to at the moment were the ones that I kind of referred to earlier. They're 40 years old. They came out in 1985, and they ran smooth right out of the box. So these two I just put ESU lock sound decoders in them, and I was
Because it was in the early '80s when Kato started making those yellow box Atlas
yeah.
trains.
Kato built a lot of engines for other companies like Rivarossi, Concor. Um, they had their own stuff, but they really built a lot of the stuff, the precision stuff, for other companies.
Yeah, I wonder how they. I wonder when they got started. Like what year they got started.
I'd have to look that up.
And I'm trying to look it up right now because that's really Kato changed the whole face of the game.
They did, and if I recall correctly, the Kato plant and the Kato company are like, one sits right on top of the other. So Kato Japan is right there at the Kato plant where they make all this stuff.
Kato.
I know.
Go ahead, Derek.
Well, I was just going to ask. I know, like Brad Williamson, the Iron City guys, are huge fans of Kato equipment. Is Kato still like a dominant player in N scale? I know that they receded from HO.
Yeah, they are. They have some very precision run stuff. So, stuff that like their Mikados back in the day. They only had the Mikado steam engine for a while. And their Mikados just run smooth. They're smooth as butter.
Smooth as butter.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what makes N scale fascinating to me. And I'm so far gone that I won't be able to ever switch. But what is fascinating to me is that N scale runs so smoothly and then you can operate really well with a sense of mass. Like when I see, like Jonathan Myers posted a video of him messing around with this new proto throttle with an N scale Atlas Jeep. I was just like, wow, that just looks like the real thing. It feels like the real thing. It doesn't feel like a slot car where you give it one speed step and it's 30 miles an hour. And the operating potential for N scale is huge, and the like community aspect of it. Take your equipment to an N-Trak or T-Trak layout. It feels more like there's more opportunities for fellowship and cooperation than at the larger scales. It's just I would if you were starting today, I think you'd have to start an N scale.
You got to remember, in N scale, you can get twice as much stuff in a room and that you could have had you had your HO stuff in.
Exactly. Yes.
And I've got a small layout out at my Florida room, and I've got over 50 T-Trak modules that I've developed and put in cases out in the garage. And I need a trailer to move them all around now, but
do you have a trailer?
Yep.
Okay.
I bought it just to move T-Trak modules around.
And do you have it like shelved in there or something so you can?
I have them in rollaways. So I built these aluminum framed and aluminum welded rollaways, and then I dressed it all up with some nice wood and cabinet looking. So I put all my modules on the shelves in there, and I get them all packed in nice and tight. And then I lock the doors and I roll them up onto the trailer. And once they're in the trailer, I strap the whole unit down and bring in all my power supplies and tools and all that stuff and put that in the trailer, and then off I go. So we went to Pensacola over the Martin Luther King holiday. We were out in Pensacola running trains for 2 days.
So do you remember a time, like, do you remember as an individual model railroader with a life invested in N scale, do you remember a time when you kind of went, well, this is way better than it's ever been? Like you bought a particular locomotive or some cars or something, and all of a sudden you're thinking, this has been fun, but now it's great.
Yeah. So, like I said, I used to buy stuff from the exchange. So I would buy the older Atlas engines and the older Bachmann before they were Spectrum engines from the exchange, and they ran decently well. But you still had to do the whole reset it every so often on your track, or they were sensitive to switches and didn't pass through well. So, but after some of this, the Concours stuff started coming out, and they switched from the old CAN motors to the uh, newer motors. These things just started running like a Swiss watch. They just ran well. They passed right through um, any switch that you threw at it, crossovers, scissor crossings, everything. They just rolled right through, and um, they didn't pop off and cause a short or any other issue. They just kept rolling. Now, some of these older ones, like the ones I was talking about, these old Concours River Rossi S2 steam engines, um, they would they would they would get some Lionel style speed going if you let them go, but they have a real low crawl, so they will move very slowly for just as efficiently as they will at top speed.
So you just said you sent a couple of Concours engines away.
I did.
Where'd you send them?
I sent them to Stephen Fields out of Backshop, uh, Streamline Backshops.
Oh, here in Alabama.
No, he's in Illinois, I think.
Oh, is he? Is this SBS or DCC.com?
I don't know. I have his card, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
But it's Streamlined Backshops, and I want to say he's out of Illinois. So I sent it to him, and he's one of these guys that he's pretty amazing. I sent him a very old Kato Japanese electric. It was a Great Northern Electric. Sent it to him a long time ago, and he managed to get that old Kato engine. And I'm talking, when you look at this Kato container, all the paper's yellowed. It's all it doesn't look like it. It's really going to run all that well, and it runs smooth after he put that. He put all the in it. It runs nice and smooth. So
I found the Streamline Backshop website, sbs4dcc.com.
Yep, that's it.
And we just haven't. I just can't find on here. But it sounds like you seem to know where they're located, Derek.
Yeah, I mean, the Streamline Backshop is in northern Alabama. They're up in the Decatur area. Oh, here's the address.
Athens, Alabama.
Athens, Alabama.
And their postal code is 35613. Yeah, exactly. Actually, I guess we could give out the real phone number because it's actual business. So it is
a legitimate business, yes.
Yeah, so their actual phone number is 317-201-4974. What are you doing there, Andy?
Sorry, I went and grabbed a card for you.
Well, if you sent your engines to Illinois and the Streamline Backshop is in Alabama, we might have to trace down those engines.
So Stephen Fields is the installer for Streamline Backshops.
Oh,
and okay. he's out of Lake in the Hills, Illinois.
Okay, so they have multiple locations. That makes sense.
So I think Streamline Backshops sells a lot of product, and his installer is Stephen Fields. And interesting enough, Stephen Fields also does a lot of installs for Kato.
Oh, for their Kobo custom sound.
So any of their DCC work, when they have a large influx that they need to get out, and they're being overwhelmed, they send them to Steven so he can do them. He did like 70 of them over one weekend of the executive models of the ES44s, I think it was.
I think, if I remember correctly, from my days working in a hobby shop, Kato would keep an inventory of their locomotives on hand in just straight DC. And then as a hobby shop, we could tell them, hey, go ahead and add a decoder to it. And they would go literally pull a locomotive off the rack, put the decoder in, and then ship it to us to then ship to our customer.
Right.
Streamline Backshop has a really nice website. They must be a real going concern. And I may have heard of them once, but I don't really remember ever hearing of them.
Yeah, they specialize in DCC product.
They
So
do.
if you go on their website, if there's any kind of decoder or decoder part or decoder accessory that you can imagine, they have it and they ship very quickly. And
Mhm.
for people like me who use ESU but are afraid of programming the decoders, they will load a sound file onto your ESU decoder for you and then ship it for no additional fee. So
Yep. And that was the beauty of these. Like I said, these engines were like the 1985 version of the engine when it first came out with the Concord motors and the Concord. Excuse me, with the Kato motors and the Kato running gear. Um, they're a Great Northern S2 steam engine, and he put those ESU lock sound decoders in them. He loaded up all the appropriate um, steam sounds for that particular make and model of engine, and then all the correct bells, whistles, etc. And then he put the side number, programmed the side number onto it, and sent it down here because I don't like messing around with the lock sound programmer. I'm not good at it, so he took care of all of it before he sent it to me.
It's funny how some people, I mean, that's you always get to every discussion with every model railroader. You get to I don't like doing this or I don't like doing that,
Mhm.
and it'll be something that somebody else is like, oh, I love working on the programming, the programmer, and some people love it, some people don't. You know, it's crazy.
I'm just not. I'm not good at it. I do have members of my club that are exceptional at it.
Well,
So
sure, yeah,
yeah,
it's
and I
whatever.
have them teach me when I have a need.
Yeah, but it's whatever strikes your fancy.
Mm.
Like if you have a penchant for like you could get into N scale, Dirk, because they have plain gray hoppers there too.
Oh, yeah. I got
they
a plenty.
do, yes.
I got plenty of those.
Can I trade 52 plain gray hoppers and HO for 52 and N? If so, maybe we'll make that happen.
Yeah, that was. I bet you'd find somebody. Man, I can't get over this streamlined back shop. They've got everything. Holy moly!
This
Yep.
actually reminds me, I have a shopping cart full with them. I need to click purchase on that shopping cart. So thank you.
So what have you purchased from them lately, Derek? What do you get? What's in your shopping cart that you got to click?
A couple of decoders and a couple of the ESU. I forget what they call them. Keep alives, the capacitors.
Okay.
And when you put those in, I combine that with a Scale Sound System speaker and the Scale Sound System's 3D printed ditch light housings, and it's just a magical combination.
Right, and then there's ditch. They're not just housings. I'm assuming there's lights in the housings.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Scale Sound Systems, they have a kit you can buy, and it's either a pilot mounted or a walkway mounted ditch light with the surface mount LED and the lens all in one kit. So all you have to do is follow the instructions and assemble it with a speck of super glue and a little bit of sanding and attach to the locomotive, wire it in to the decoder buddy, and then to the decoder.
Ooh.
Scale Sound Systems has grown like crazy too.
Mm-hmm.
I need to place an order with them as well.
Like when I interviewed him years ago now, at least 5. And
I think I learned about him through your podcast.
Yeah, and they didn't have a website like this. Holy mackerel. Look at this thing. Look at that. Like they got all kinds of stuff now. And a very fancy website and a very fancy man, did they take off? I wonder if it's a full-time gig for him now. Probably is. The speakers, everybody raves about the Scale Sound System speakers.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was impressed. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I said that's what I was impressed with when I got these the 2 Concors and the Arnold Rivarossi engines back. When I went to run them, I'm like, good Lord, that is loud and it's clear.
Can I ask? Do you mind if I ask you how much the cost to get your locomotives? With better whatever it was you did to them.
To have them modified for DCC.
Yeah,
I think. Let's see. He charged me, I think it was $300 to convert each of the locomotives.
Okay, so that's a fair price because there's a fair amount of work involved.
Oh yeah, especially you're talking something 40, 42 years old.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do.
And do you remember, like, at first when DCC first came out, like, I don't think N scale was on the map as far as decoders. How long was it? Do we remember, Andy, seeing as how you're the N scale guy? Do you remember how long it was from when DCC started to become a thing until it became a thing for N scale?
N scale. I don't remember exactly. I know that it was in its infancy back in the 80s, and that I would say that it probably wasn't until the mid 90s before it actually started moving its way into the N scale environment. And even then, they were just very basic decoders. And when they came out with the decoders with sound, it took a while for them to get it miniaturized down for N scale.
Derek, you're a deep thinker.
I try to be.
Yeah, you do try to be. What was my question going to be? I don't remember now. Doesn't matter.
Does it need to think deep in order?
Yeah, I had to go so deep for the question. I couldn't remember it when I got back to the surface.
Good thing I'm a shallow kind of guy.
Yeah, me too.
I'm sorry.
Kato was founded in 1957. The Tokyo-based company manufactures models based on Japanese prototypes such as the Shinkansen bullet train and gauge trains for the Japanese market, North American prototypes for North American market, European high-speed trains, models for the 009 market of the Festengag Railway. American market are handled by their U.S. subsidiary. Subsidiary. Yeah. Here's the problem with these shorter podcasts. When we run into words that I can't even pronounce, that chews up some valuable time.
Yeah. So they do have a Kato USA that handles most of their USA stuff.
Yeah, the subsidiary was founded. Kato USA was founded in 1986 and is located in Schaumburg, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that the Kato parent company is almost 70 years old.
I know, me neither.
And and the thing is, they have been producing precision products from moment one.
So, I guess that's why I think of them as so new, is because they always seem to have like high quality, well engineered products. I associate that with, they're new, but they've been around for a long time.
Yeah, and it's funny because most of the products that I have problems with are usually Chinese built. So, or had problems with, they've gotten better now, but because you've got better engineering and better manufacturing. But
what kind of products are those that you?
Well, I don't want to mention any like company names or anything, but
well, go ahead. I think that pissed them all off. So go ahead.
Yeah, the companies won't come on anyway. So.
No. Now that I'm the standards and conformance manager, I got to be as neutral as possible.
I understand.
Oh, okay. You're a public figure. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so but I have always been impressed with Kato's work and their precision engineering that they've done. I guess I'll just leave it at that. They seem to surpass everybody early.
Yeah, exactly. I think I remember the deep thought question I had, but it doesn't really make much sense now. But I'm wondering, like the evolution of DCC from, say, the mid 90s until it's only been around for 30 years. But I wonder, like they often say, the TV you buy at Best Buy today was really developed 5 years ago. The technology is 5 years old, but they're only getting it out to the open market now. I wonder what the process was. I'm always fascinated by the manufacturer's process of getting things to a point, because there had to be a fair amount of cost in making decoders so small that they would fit in N-scale locomotives. And nowadays, what these decoders do and the sound that you get and everything, that's what's making N-scale become more and more popular. And I'm just wondering, like, my deep thought question is kind of like, I wonder how these companies decide it's time to invest the money to, because there's got to be a fair size investment in doing this.
Well, but I think like the technology tends to get cheaper as it advances, right? So
as products and as electronics get miniaturized and become more available, yes.
So it costs a lot less to manufacture a printed circuit board chip now than it did in 1995. And I feel like, I mean, again, I haven't bought a standard DC decoder in a while, but I feel like when I was, you know, 10 or 12 years ago, a DC decoder, a good deal on one was like $22, and now they're like $25. Like that's not necessarily keeping up with inflation. So
You mean
I do think that there's probably.
You meant DCC decoder, correct?
Did I say DC?
You did.
Sorry. I
No.
think, yeah. So DCC decoder, standard DCC decoders, non-SAT DCC decoders.
Okay, they're still in the $20 range, are they?
Mm-hmm. And now they start to move up in cost as you require more functions, more sound, more. So you can get a standard 6-function decoder, and it's only $25-$30. But if you get a ESU lock sound that does, all the ditch lights and the backup lights and the headlights and the cab lights and all the different sounds, and you can hear the the guys on the radio and talking to the tower and all kind. That starts to get a little expensive. So,
but I think in the same period of 10 or 15 years, the cost of locomotives has about doubled.
Right. And again, anything that you make tiny, with precision, that you make tiny is going to cost more money. So.
Yeah, it's like it says here, an ESU Loc Sound 5 Nano DCC sound decoder is $98.75.
Because it'll do so much, and it's so compact. Now, if you want to talk about tiny, the ESU, I think it's called the E24, but it's a 24-pin connector, and literally, I had it sitting right here. I'd show it to you, but literally, it's as small as my fingernail, and it's a sound decoder.
Wow, that's what's that's what's changed recently. Is this advancement in the size of these decoders and what they can do?
Yeah, and it'll run an N-scale engine, and it has enough current handling capacity to run an N-scale engine and not have a problem.
They're selling something called a Zemo decoder. Z or Z.
Zemo. Zemo is a company.
I never heard of them.
Oh yeah, they've been mostly a European company. I think it's Austria or Germany. I'll have to look it up real quick. But yeah, they are just starting to break into the American market, and they've been submitting things for testing and what have you. So yeah, they're just kind of getting started in the American market, but they've been in the European market for a long time.
Okay. All right. Well, I've never heard of them, so that's why I've never heard of them, because they just showed up, I guess.
Yeah.
So here's the problem, Derek and Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're 35 minutes in, and the main reason I said let's get on the podcast together is to talk about these train shows that are coming up in Florida, in northern Florida. But
can we knock that out in 10 minutes?
Yeah, that's the problem. I don't know. This whole shorter podcast thing is a disaster.
Well, I think what you just do, Lionel, is we cover it, and then you take this part of the podcast and make it, instead of 1.1x speed, make it like 1.5x speed. You're playing the fine print at the end of the commercial.
I'm sure I sound excellent with my voice that high. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
So if you want to talk about them,
no, not really.
Come on, man.
Okay. First off, I'm looking at your. Hang on here. I'm looking at your T-Trak Southeast Facebook page.
Right, the one that I just started like 3 days ago, a week ago, something like that.
Yeah, and it has 9 members, so we got to get that up. So if you go on Facebook, it's T-Trak Southeast.
Right.
So now, before we get any farther, I've skimmed down a few posts. Here's a post from February the 12th, and it shows the map of the Southeast T-Trak group.
Right.
And West Virginia's in it.
Yeah. So when you look online and you said, "Give me a map of the Southeast," so it populates about 4 different maps, and so I just wanted to take it and cut it off right across the top of Tennessee. So, but then I got some people from Kentucky. They're like, "Hey, wait a minute." So, all right. So if I put Kentucky back in there, then now all of a sudden you got West Virginia and Virginia. So they are loosely affiliated. I'll put it that way. So I included them all. I figured any place you can walk into the restaurant and get sweet tea, that's the South. So
Well, but if you're going to put Kentucky in it, don't you have to put in Ohio?
no, because you can't get sweet tea in Ohio, and they tell you to go, up a rope if you want sweet tea.
So it's all
Well-
based on sweet tea.
It's all based on sweet tea.
You know what I was taught
If they
when I
stop
moved-
saying, I'm sorry, if they stop
Oh.
saying hun, sweetie, um, sugar, and they don't put sugar in your sweet tea, then it's not the South.
Well, I just became member number 10.
Oh, there you go. Thanks.
So happy to
So-
be part of it.
So that whole T-Trak Southeast, we've been discussing this for a while, but we have a lot of T-Trak clubs here in the Southeast, and we never always know what the other clubs are doing. So, through our own little network, and we're talking to each other and talking to the members that lead those clubs, we find out about stuff that happens, like the Macon RPM that's coming up at the end of March. And that there's going to be like 5 to 7 clubs represented for T-Trak. So, but it's only because we're talking to one another, texting over Facebook, etc., that we even know about these other meets. And then, of course, T-Trackers will pack up everything and go to a meet. If you can tell them they have room and let's get those modules in, they'll go. So, so I noticed you were talking about the RPM. I think it was back in January in Macon, Georgia, and he didn't know it at the time, but I can tell you right now that we are up to 100 and I want to say 109 modules.
Holy moly!
And that's not single equivalents. That's 109 modules, and 5 to 7 clubs are represented going to be represented at that meet. So, including my club, which is the Big Bend Model Railroad Association, or BBMRA. We'll be represented there, as well as the GSNF and the Pensacola Model Railroad Club, and some of the other clubs in Mobile and what have you. So,
And this will all be at the RPM in Macon?
right. And they were talking about they get like 75 people that roll through there or something. So, we're going up there just for the camaraderie and to run trains and to just wow people that come through the door. So, to your point, Lionel, we can help them grow that and make it a bigger show.
Yeah, they're gonna get way more than 75 people, I think.
Yeah.
I was going to say, there's no way we can have more modules than we have people.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and I think the those guys' heart is in the right place. They're doing it for all the right reasons. I think
Right.
pretty quickly. Maybe this
Absolutely.
year they'll get to 100, but within a couple of 3 years they're going to be pushing 200 people, 180 people, something like that. It won't take long.
And that's what happened with our Big Bend Model Railroad Association, the Tallahassee Model Railroad Show and Sale that we have here in Tallahassee at the end of June every year. We started out, and we started out with a couple of tables at the Moose Lodge and just running trains, and that was 34 years ago. So, or 35 years ago, actually, because then we finally decided, okay, we're going to actually do this and make it an actual show. So we took it out to the fairgrounds, and it was just a few vendors. Like, it was a handful, like 5 or 6 vendors. And then the rest of it was all exhibits and trains and, what the club could do. And as more and more people realized we were there, it kept growing and growing, and it went from a 1-day show in one building to a 2-day show in two buildings, and we packed that thing out. I mean, for a Florida show, Florida shows are, I wish they were like Amherst. We got 21,000, 27,000 people rolling through there. I'd be in train heaven if that happened. But um,
Yeah, but how many people did you say you got last year?
1,100.
That's a decent train show, and you're going to
Yeah,
get that's only going to continue to grow.
right. The more we advertise and the more we get recognized and the more word of mouth gets out. Matter of fact, we just started attracting manufacturers. We had JTC out of Jacksonville, the Jacksonville Terminal Company. They make a lot of
Yes, Jackson.
models.
Yeah, they make a lot of cool stuff. I met them years ago. Jacksonville
Um,
Terminal.
right. We had them at the show. We've had Mud Creek. We've had a lot of the um, manufacturers for uh, sorry, for uh, the laser kits, the laser cut kits, Motrak models, Mud Creek, and a couple of others. They come down all the way from, I think it's, what is it, Rhode Island or something? Or come up from Staten Island, something. It's up there in New York. Anyway, they come down and they come to our show in Tallahassee. It's a 2-day trip for them, but they make enough money that they're at our show. Now this year they won't be because the N Scale convention is at the same weekend as ours is. They moved it, so now we're competing with them, and of course that's not really a competition because everybody's going to go to the N Scale convention. So
And where's the N Scale convention?
it's in, I want to say it's in Kentucky, Kansas City this year, I think.
And who were we talking about the other day? I started talking about N Scale enthusiast. Oh yeah, when we were Joe
Mhm.
Desmond. Yeah, a couple of
Yep.
weeks ago, a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And do you know much about that? Or let's finish talking about these shows because we're.
Sure.
I'm okay.
So,
Hang on a minute. We got to. So Philip and Neil and Rod and Linda and all you guys there on the Wednesday night Patreon chats. This is like I'm already at 45 minutes. Help me. Now I know why the podcast was an hour and a half or an hour and 40 minutes because I can't stop
Right.
talking. I have 1,000 questions for everybody.
I think if we're in the flow, we can keep it going.
Yeah, we'll keep it going for a little bit. We can keep it
Sure.
going for a few minutes. Either that or start a second show. But our guest here, Andy, has to get to dinner because is it okay if Andy, if I talk about
Sure, go ahead. No worries.
His brother had a stroke.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Andy. Oh man.
So we were talking about that before the show started, and so everybody give some thought to Andy and his brother, who's had a stroke, and he's really struggling right this minute.
Yeah, he is. He's struggling.
What's your brother's name?
Tony.
Tony Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Tony, we're giving a big shout out to Tony Zimmerman.
It's actually Tony Wright.
Wright.
Tony Wright.
Yeah.
So he's a half brother?
Yeah, different dads.
Different dad. Okay.
So
but
he's
a brother.
Used to be a radio personality, and he's got some awards and stuff out there from. Yeah.
Where was Tony like a radio guy?
In Michigan and Oklahoma.
Wow, cool. All right. So originally, the reason I contacted you and said to come on the podcast was you had started talking about the other show that comes first ahead of you guys in April.
Right. So that's Railfest.
Right.
So that's run by the Pensacola Model Railroad Club. And it's going to be Saturday, April 26th from 9 to 5 on Saturday, and Sunday, April 27th from 9 to 4 out at the Pensacola Interstate Fairgrounds. They have about 102 tables that they sold to about 30 vendors. They max those tables out in December, and the show is until April.
Wow.
They have 8 train layouts to include Z scale, N scale, HO scale, and O scale, and 1 G scale layout. They're also going to have a 7.5-inch gauge railroad car on display. And that show is, like I said, it's in Saturday, April 26th.
So for everybody around the world, those of you, hello, Mr. and Mrs. South Africa, and all the ships at sea.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Pensacola, Florida, is right on the border of Florida, the state of Florida, and the state of Alabama, right near Mobile, Alabama. So in Florida has a panhandle that goes to the west, and Pensacola is right on the border. So it's probably like what? Looks like about a 2-hour drive from Tallahassee.
It's a 2.5 to 3, just depends on traffic and wind over the bridge and all that stuff. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, because there's a big bridge you got to go over just outside of Pensacola. Have you been to Pensacola yet, Derek?
I have. Yes, we been to Pensacola, but we go down to Gulf Shores and Orange Beach probably 4 or 5 times a year, which is just on the other side of the border of Alabama.
Right. Do you go to Destin?
Not usually, but it's close by there as well.
Oh yeah, Destin's beautiful. The water's that azure blue, and the beaches are white, and they call it the Forgotten Coast for a reason.
It really is. It's a hidden gem.
Yep. Yeah, there's a
whole stretch of beach.
Yeah, there's a big bridge you got to get over to get into Destin too.
Yep.
So okay, I'm assuming you and your club are going to the Pensacola show then.
Yep, we will. We're going to be one of I want to say it's 7 clubs that will be participating in the T-Trak layout. They do have HO T-Trak there as well.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen an HO T-Trak layout, but I've always been curious about that.
Then you need to come to our show at the end of June, because my club has a huge HO T-Trak layout. Matter of fact, we got approached on developing the standards for it because we have so many modules already.
Really? Huh. My whole layout is built on commercially available T-Trak, HO T-Trak module kits. Just put those on top of some IKEA shelves, and it works really well.
Works as a shelf layout if you just want to do it that way.
It's exactly the way I did it. Yep.
You just said you hadn't heard of HO T-Trak.
No, I've never seen an HO T-Trak in person.
Okay. Except for the one that's right behind you.
Well, exactly. Except for that one.
He thought he was doing something unique, and we've been doing it all along.
T-Trak is it's amazing. It's just taken off like gangbusters.
Mm-hmm.
And our very own Tracy Boyd, the official flight attendant of the AML, she still struggles to understand T-Trak, as do I. As do I.
So what part do you struggle to understand? The allure of it, or the reasoning behind it? Or
no, I think I understand the allure of it. I think I understand that it's a great gateway to the hobby, where it's like all you got to do is build like basically a 1-foot square module, and you can go to wherever there's a T-Trak event, join a local club, and boom, you're now part of a bigger layout and all that. I think I understand all that. I understand it pretty much now. I just it's like N scale. What's the point of N scale?
N scale is the normal scale. What am I telling you? What have I told you?
So okay, so we talked about the Pensacola show.
Mm-hmm.
So
let me I think there was a couple other things I needed to point out here, but
okay.
So let's see here. It's going to be at the Pensacola Interstate Fairgrounds. And they, like I said, they already sold 102 tables last year. In 2024, their attendance was about 460 people paid attendees through the door. So it continues to grow. It continues to get bigger. The Gene Marquis and Stuart Denniston, they do a fantastic job, and as well as Lewis. They do a fantastic job of putting that show together and getting it all wrapped up nice and tight. And so if you're in the Pensacola area, you really need to try that show out.
And I would think,
what are the dates again for the Pensacola show?
It's April 26th and 27th, and it's $10.
Well, that's around the time of my birthday, and that's around the distance I would drive for a train show. So that sounds interesting to me.
And how far are you from Tallahassee, Derek?
from Tallahassee, I'm thinking it's 7 hours, maybe a
Where
little.
are
Okay.
you at, Derek?
I'm in Birmingham.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Yeah. Roll Tide, except for this year.
It's exactly what I've been saying. Yeah, except for
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, but I think isn't that seeing as how I know an Alabama guy. I've known Alabama people before, but I think it doesn't really matter. You just say Roll Tide, regardless of whether they're
You're
having
right.
a good.
It doesn't matter. It's part of their vernacular, and it's how they end a sentence.
It's how we start the sentence too.
Yeah.
But what's amazing is it's the great equalizer, right? You can have a CEO, or you can have somebody who's not a CEO, or anybody from any walk
Blue
of
collar,
life,
white
any
collar.
education. It doesn't matter. Roll Tide is the great equalizer, and that's one of the cool things that brings people together here.
And it's the same with model railroading. It really doesn't matter what your role in life is. If you find two guys that have an interest in a particular locomotive on the Kansas City Southern, whether one guy is and I always feel I got to pick whether one guy is a world famous brain surgeon and the other fella is not necessarily a world famous brain surgeon, but a hardworking family man that's
Blue collar worker.
a blue collar worker, just a good guy. If those two guys find each other and they have a common bond in model railroading, they will become lifelong friends.
Yep.
And they won't turn on each other, and they just will stay as lifelong friends because of their connection through model railroading.
Because it's a common bond.
It's a common bond that knows no breaks. Okay, so tell us now about your show in June.
So my show in June, it's the 28th and 29th of June. Setup's going to be on the 27th. We have our T-Trak setup, and this doesn't include all the setups, but the T-Trak setup alone was over 128 feet long and 14 to 18 feet deep, depending on which peninsula you're on. We had 5 peninsulas running off of it. And we had 7 clubs last year, and it looks like we're going to have 10 clubs this year participating, from as far as Tennessee, as far north as Tennessee, and as far west as Louisiana, and as far south as the guys out of Orlando. So
that's fabulous. I think that's great. You know what? We should have you back on again towards the middle of May or something, or at the 1st of May to talk about that show again, just to remind everybody, because you guys work hard at that show.
Oh, we do. So we're going to have N-Track. Let's see, there'll be some N-Track modules there. There'll be T-Track. There's going to be HO-T-Track, which is a large display this year. We'll have some O-scale layouts, and normally we have live steam layouts as well. So, and then we'll have event. If you can't find it at our show, then you're not looking.
Wait, what's a live steam layout?
They use alcohol engines or alcohol flames to steam an engine.
Which scale? I mean, are we talking?
It's about G scale.
G scale.
It's about G scale. Yeah.
Wow.
But they're actually powered by alcohol, and they create steam, and the steam, turns the drivers.
So, how are they controlled? Or is it like with a throttle, or is it with like
throttle?
Actual. Okay.
Yep.
So now I found a company that makes, and then maybe this is company. It's called Model Railroad Benchwork Store.
Yep, that's one of our sponsors. As a matter of fact, for N-Rail, they're one of the T-Trak model or T-Trak builders,
and they build HO scale T-Trak modules.
As does CMR Products, as does T-Trak by Denniston. I want to say Klondike also does.
I was just on this Model Railroad Benchwork Store website earlier this week, looking at benchwork for the next layout.
Mm-hmm. He does some good work. He does some good layout work for his benches. So if you're running N-Track or T-Trak, he does a pretty decent job of it.
I had seen that they did some custom work for a model railroader I like named Alex Bogaski. I think that's how you say his last name. But they built him. He's in the military, and so he needs portability. And so they built him HO scale modules with the oh my goodness, the fascia and the valance above the layout with integrated lighting. So you have not only the pre-made folding like benchwork, but then the valance and the lighting and the backdrop all in a portable setup. And that just looks really, really, really compelling, like museum quality finishing on that. And I realized I will probably need to use them for the next layout.
And what's that name of that company?
That's the same website you were just on, the Model Railroad Benchwork store.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, they just seem to have some really beautiful stuff.
Now, when you start comparing models, you start looking at the different manufacturers, and I'm not choosing one over the other. I advocate for CMR Products does a fantastic job of their kits, and Klondike does a fantastic job. I've got some from Model Railroad Benchwork store, but if you want like an assembled T-Trak module that is literally cabinet grade work, then that T-Trak by Denniston, he does a fantastic job, and they're much thicker, hardier. He'll do a lot of customization for you. So
did you say CMR and then T-Trak by Denniston? Both of them are good, or just you prefer T-Trak by Denniston?
Lately it's been T-Trak by Denniston because a lot of my modules have gotten. If you've seen some of them, so there's a lot of buildings and art or a lot of scenery and what have you, so it gets kind of heavy. So the CMR Products ones handle it just fine, but the T-Trak by Denniston, you can't go wrong with those at all.
T-Trak by Denniston, we started a goal of providing the best products and service to our customers. With over 30 years experience with cabinet making, we have established ourselves as trusted brand that delivers quality every time. I'm fascinated by the fact that there are so many companies that make model railroad benchwork.
So, it's funny because I'm sorry.
No, you don't need to be sorry. Yeah, I don't think anybody.
No, I said it's funny, and I know the rules about funny.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. We'll decide if it's funny or not.
I'm impressed on the T-Trak by Denniston website, and they even have the return loop shaped benches. It looks like the top of a lollipop. That's so cool.
I have one.
Oh, I've never seen commercially made round benchwork like that.
Yep, he does a fantastic job. And I have one, and it is solid. It is a brick. So.
And they do HO scale T-Trak modules as well.
Does an HO, you're right.
Yeah, wow. Right.
When I say it's funny strange, not funny, haha. But during COVID, when other companies were unable to provide T-Trak modules for everybody, Stuart Denniston was busy, putting these modules out, and everybody got to see the quality of his work, and he's really started making a name for himself. So that's why he's gotten so popular.
All right, this is it. We're stopping now, and this is the fault. If anybody wants to hear more, you have to blame Mick and Neil and Craig and Joe and David and Linda and Ralph and James and Doug and George and Gary and Daniel and Rod. Oh, two Rods. Rod. Chris and Ken and Stephen and Jeff. And Ralph. Yeah, I think I said Ralph and Gary
and me
and you and Andy, because they all agree that they enjoy the shorter podcast. So that's it. We're done. Sorry. Okay. You're just going to have to come back around the beginning of May, and we'll talk more about that, your show coming up, because you'll have more to talk about it.
Oh yeah. We just released the contracts, and I've already sold 43 out of 150 to 160 tables. And the contract's only been out a couple of days.
Speaking of train shows, and we'll probably speak of this again over the year many times, but I got an email from John Sacerdoti, who's the director of the Springfield show,
Right.
and wanted to talk to me about my booth.
Right.
And so I sent him. He said, "Can I call you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so, anyways, he calls me and he's like, "Yeah, no more cheese balls in the aisles."
Oh, did those get out of control?
He just says, "You cannot serve food in the aisles." I think I said that to you. I don't know if he said that or not, but anyways,
Well, he said we couldn't sell food in the aisles.
Yeah, well, apparently
No, he said we couldn't sell food.
Yeah, and apparently
you can give it away, but
and apparently whoever works for the state of Massachusetts came and explained to him we couldn't even serve food in the aisles,
we can serve food at the table, but we were blocking up the flow of traffic.
Yes, and there was some Massachusetts type person that said we couldn't do that. And the other thing he was emphatic about was no more inflatable animals. That's it. We're done with the inflatable animals.
I can't imagine why.
He said it clogged while they were walking down. It clogged up the aisle.
Well, it's because they were all trying to become super fans.
Yeah, exactly. So they clogged up the aisles. He said, no more inflatable. And he said, and I'm telling you right now, if your group photo gets much bigger, you're taking that outside.
Oh, that's got to do nothing but grow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's only going to grow bigger and bigger as the years go by, for sure. All right. That's it. We're done. See, you tricked me. You made this one longer.
Oh, well, you know what? It was well worth it.
Yeah.
And you can cut the beginning part about the Navy stuff if you want.
No, the Navy stuff was interesting. Derek will enjoy that. Everybody will enjoy it because it was a very interesting chit chat. I was asking him what life is like on an aircraft carrier, because you don't get to that often. There are many, many, many men and women who served on our aircraft carriers in the U.S. Navy.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, you don't get that many opportunities to talk to people who actually did that job.
Right.
No, to live in a floating city like that.
And, the bowling alleys are fantastic, though.
Bowling alleys?
There's no bowling alleys.
Oh, okay.
You really...
Oh, we're losing you. Well, that's perfect timing. You were losing your connection.
Oh, hold on a minute.
Uh-oh. He's got to replug it back in.
Nah, I had to move back closer to my Bluetooth. It's funny. I walked all the way out to the garage and didn't lose you once.
Oh, what were you doing out in the garage?
I had to get the cards for Stephen Fields.
Oh,
because we had to verify if he sent his engines to the right place.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. All right. Yes. Anyway, see, I see what you're doing. You're just dragging this out.
I'm not trying to. But seriously though, if you want to talk about being on an amphibious assault ship and what you do on that ship as compared to an aircraft carrier and what life's like, living on one of those, I'll be happy to talk to you about it.
Well,
that would be a good Patreon episode, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Just maybe a little off topic. And
I was dubbed the official AML flight deck troubleshooter.
That's true. You were.
That's right. Yeah. We need one of those.
There's a guy I'm dying to talk to, and I may end up putting it on this podcast because there's a few people outside the hobby that I'm dying to talk to, and I can't think of a better place to put it than I don't want to start another podcast, although I could, I guess. But his name is, I think on YouTube it's Rob Roy. I think that's what it is. Mm-hmm. Anyways, he's a pilot, and he has these fabulous videos of landing and taking off from an aircraft carrier. Mm-hmm. And let me see. Yeah, there it is. That's it. Rob Roy. I found it.
So what was he flying?
He was flying hang on. It was a transport plane. Wow. They bring people on and they take people off.
The C2s?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where it's, they look like miniature transport planes.
They look like small E2Cs.
Okay.
Without the radar dome on it.
Okay. If you say so.
That's kind of an amazing thing when you fly you to the shore and the ship is still out at sea, and you have to go to the shore to pick up components and parts so that you can rebuild the stuff on the ship so that we can meet our mission. When you're coming back, the C2 pilots were like, "Hey, Chief, come up here and take a look." And I walked over and he said, "You see that little tiny postage stamp out there in the middle of the ocean?" I was like, "Well, yes." He goes, "We're going to land on that." So I watched them come in, and as long as I could, I sat there and watched as we started our approach and coming in. I finally had to go strap in for the landing, but
Yeah, and you sit backwards to the way the plane's going.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the Navy.
Yep.
It's the Navy C2 Greyhound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and anyways,
Awesome.
he's got tons and tons of videos of him taking and landing off on an aircraft carrier, and I'm thinking I would love to talk to this guy just to hear his story. Anyways, that's it.
I used to launch the.
Yeah, I see what's stopping right now. That's it. We're done.
The last few minutes will be at 2x speed. Don't worry.
Exactly.
I'll be speeding it up.
Derek, do you want to give out our email address?
Yeah, I'd love to. If you would like to reach out to us through the wonders of email, we would love to receive your emails, whether they're pro or con. They all get read on the air. And you can reach us at modellerslife@gmail.com. That's modeler with one L, like Pensacola, not two L's, like Tallahassee.
Oh, look at you!
Perfect. And if you enjoy this podcast, which is on the free channel, and you'd like twice as much podcasting every week, if you go to our Patreon site go to our website, amodellerslife.com, and scroll down, you'll see a link there to Patreon. And you go there, and for just a few cents a day, you can have twice as much podcasting a week. And I think the best part about belonging to the Patreon group is the Wednesday night chats. That seems to be getting more and more popular as we go.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that seems to be very popular, and yeah. So I think
I'm going to put a little plug here because I don't think people realize the sheer amount of raw talent that is in that Wednesday night group, and the people that you can just talk to, that they talk to you like an everyday person, and they're happy to share knowledge, skills, abilities, and help you along with, it's a community, and it's fellowship, and and it's mentorship, all in the same package, and they're all too willing to help you be a better modeler.
The AML Nation has lots to offer. Lots and lots to offer, lots and lots of folks. So that's pretty much it. And as far as T-shirt goes, we've moved our T-shirt shop. So right now it's under construction, but soon we'll have it open again, and you'll be able to buy your T-shirt with a hot dog on it. But
Well, good thing I got my T-shirts at Amherst.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. All right.
People have been emailing us. Where are the hot dog T-shirts?
Where are the hot dog T-shirts? We need a hot dog T-shirt. All right, so that's it.
They're coming.
Yeah, they're coming. So that's it. Andy, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
modular model railroaders.
Transportation for AML guests provided by Diamond Limousine. Diamond Limousine, where all of our vehicles are true diamonds in the rough.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
Y metía el bastonazo, pero se va desviado.